Looks like we're good to go.
Yep,
Thank you, Jim.
live and all set to go.
All righty. Thanks a million for today. All right. So I'm Norm Corbin. I'm the chair of the Northborough Historic District Commission. This open meeting of the commission is being conducted pursuant to S 2985 as amended, a bill to extend certain COVID-related amendments to the open meeting law as modified by Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, permitting remote meetings and participation until March 31st, 2023, signed into law July 16th, 2022. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members or the public will be permitted. So in order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a public accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows this commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on the YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring the public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So we've got that part done. The first part of the meeting is actually a public hearing that deals with the Historic District in Northborough. And I will be recusing myself from this part of the meeting as I am the applicant. So Bob, if you can take over for the public hearing for my chimney removal.
Okay, this is a public hearing regarding the removal of a chimney at 35 Whitney Street in Northborough. This property is within the Meeting House Common Historic District and is shown on the Assessor's Map 54, Block 13. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40C, and the Northborough Bylaw, Chapter 1 through 60, the Historic District Commission must hold a public hearing to review any proposed changes to the exterior of the building, within the district that can be viewed from the public way. So just to start, I will be giving a few introductory remarks. Then at some point, we will have Norm as the applicant present his proposed project. It will be open to the commission members to ask questions and then open to the public to speak and ask questions. The Northborough Historic District Commission, Ashley, we just went through the, do you want to do the roll first? I guess we should do that.
Good idea.
So we have Norm Corbin, Brian
Here.
Smith, Millie Milton.
Aye.
Bob Light here, Brian Swanson,
Here.
Amanda
Here.
Millette, Tom Reardon,
Here.
Mike Duquesne, sorry. Mike is here.
Well, I'm not on the commission
Oh,
anymore.
right, I'm sorry, okay, and Leslie Harrison.
Here.
Okay, did I miss anyone? Okay, so besides Norm, are there any other commission members that need to recuse themselves from this deliberation? No? Okay. The voting will be by the voting members of the commission. Now, the application was received on September 8th, 2022 by the applicant, and the decision, when it's reached, will have to be filed within 60 days to the clerk. So I would now invite the applicant to present the proposed project.
Thank you, Bob. So let's see if I'm doing the shared screen correctly. You have a picture of my house?
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So anything that involves the local historic district is a view from the street. So this is the chimney that's in the back of the house that you can see from the street. So that's why we're going through this exercise. So this is the chimney I'd like to take down. I'm going to pull up. Let me see if I can do this. Up here, hold on. I think it's the right document. Nope, that's not the right document. I had everything open. I just gotta find it. Can't. Sorry, guys. I know where it is, but I can't seem to share it. Did all of you receive the? Let me see here. Got it. All right. So this is the document I had to fill out for this application. We'll go right to the photograph. So this bottom one shows that this chimney is a leaning chimney. It's been that way for a long time, and now it's starting to fail. And the last thing I need is that chimney to fall. And we don't use it services two fireplaces that we don't utilize anymore. They're just ornamental at this point. So what I'm looking to have done is to have the chimney removed below the roof line, and then have the roof rebuilt with asphalt to cover over where the hole was. I hope to do this in start in about 2 weeks' time. So that is the extent of the project. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Norm, what is the age of this house, of your house?
The front part of the house is about, they got it around 1795. The back part of the house is close to the 1750.
Okay, so that chimney is actually from the older part of the house.
That's from the older part of the house. I don't know when it went up that high.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's the fireplaces are certainly original fireplaces from the old
Yeah.
house. But the chimney, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, you almost wonder if where it's starting to fail is where they had to extend it to get beyond the height of the newer part of the house.
Yeah, you're right. They would have had to increase the height. So, and if I don't have a close up of that failed area, but there's no mortar between the bricks or anything.
Now, Norm, you have a contractor assigned at this point and a proposed start date, which will be added to the application.
Yes, what I'll do, Bob, is I will fill those into the application and then resend it to you for you to sign it.
Okay, there's also a part on here that talks about agreed upon changes resulting from the commission discussion, and then that has to be signed. So it depends on what additions will be added there, but I think that's the place where you could probably add that information. So
Sure.
I don't think you have to resubmit this.
Okay, so
Just add it to the on page 2.
okay.
Okay, are there any other questions or discussions from the commission?
Does this, I don't see, where's the quote on this?
There's no quote.
Oh,
on this.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, all I have to do is identify who the contractor will be when I didn't decide that until after this was filed. And
Okay. Yep.
So Norm, this is a 1750 era chimney, and the bricks are probably locally made.
that could be the case. That could be the case. You want some brick?
No,
It's a lot easier to give them to you than to have them removed and thrown
they
away.
seem unusually thin and long, like a Roman brick, which is unusual for New England. See how skinny they are?
Mm.
I wouldn't have appreciated that.
Do they,
Typical
does
brick
it,
is 2¼ inches thick. These are probably 1¾ 2 inches.
Huh. Interesting.
I'm curious as if it matches the other chimneys.
So, yeah,
Tom, what does that say about the time period then?
Well, they suggest that it's probably locally made and used, and depending on what molds they used, they're all handmade brick
Mm.
and they're locally fired. So you get a higher degree of irregularity in how they present.
yeah, I'm not an expert on brick, that's for sure.
You said there's no mortar between the joints?
No, that's why it's failing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's mortar
They'll do
between the
it.
joints except where it's failing.
Did they use the lime mix?
Oh boy, I would have no idea. I mean, since we moved in here, it's been covered with white paint.
Okay, that's what's holding it together.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Sure that's not glue? Huh, interesting.
So it's clearly a danger to the house and in the occupants. So I'm certainly support remediation.
Mm.
Okay, one point is that during this open meeting, we're now going to invite the public to ask questions or to speak. And then when we close the meeting, then there'll be deliberation and a decision made by the commission. So are there any other further questions or clarification from the commission? If not, then I would invite the public to participate with questions or concerns or comments.
Yeah, ask Jim if anybody's in the waiting room for this.
Jim, is there anyone in the waiting room?
So nope, just besides Brett, and I see no hands at this time.
Okay, so I think that I'm authorized then to close the public hearing.
That's correct.
So I therefore close the public hearing. Okay, now we'll start with the deliberation. So at this point, we're going to decide whether if there's further comments, we can go ahead and do that, or if not, the commission would then vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness or decline.
I don't really have any objection to this project.
So let's go around to the voting members and vote. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness?
So moved?
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so let's vote and yell if I missed anyone. Brian Smith. Is Brian still here? On mute, maybe?
He's on mute.
Brian, are you on mute? We'll come back to Brian. Millie,
Aye.
Brian Swanson,
Approve.
Amanda, are you a voting member, Amanda?
I'm not voting yet.
Okay, Tom Reardon,
I'm an alternate.
okay. Leslie,
Yes, I'm in favor.
and Mike is not a voting member.
Correct.
Okay, and Bob Light votes aye. I think that's everyone but Brian Smith.
Yeah, you need,
I'm mute now.
Yay.
Brian,
I'm
how do you vote?
Unmuted now.
No, we
No?
can hear you, Brian.
Yeah, okay.
How do you vote, Brian?
Vote in favor.
Okay, so we have 5 ayes, no nays. So we have approved the certificate of appropriateness.
thank you, guys. I appreciate this. It's been a project I've been wanting to do for years, so.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Could you save me a couple bricks?
I'll
I
save you
know.
some bricks. No problem. Thanks again.
Now I'm going to turn the meeting back to Norm.
All righty. Kill that with that. Stuff keeps popping up. All right. So now we're in the regular meeting agenda. So what are we doing on time? 7:28. The prior meeting minutes that were prepared by Brian Swanson. Has anybody had a chance to take a look at them?
Mhm.
Yep.
Unless there's any questions regarding the minutes.
I wasn't there. So.
All right, so if there are no questions regarding the minutes, someone make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of whatever that day was.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of September 7th.
I second.
All right, so let's just do the voting members. Mr. Light,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Leslie was not there. Mr. Swanson. And Brian Smith.
Here, I mean, favor of it.
All right, and I'm in favor, so that is done. What I'd like you to do now, Jim, if you could bring in Brett Pelletier from Kirk and Company, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving him over now.
Good evening.
Hey, Brett, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Welcome to the Historic District Commission meeting.
Good to be here.
And we're not too far behind schedule. Let's see. So let me introduce Brett. Brett is with the company, Kirk and Company, and he's been responsible to pull together a request for proposal to look at partners for the White Cliffs project. And so Brett, why don't you just update us on where it is and
Sure.
and the like.
Sure. So for the past few months, we've been meeting and sort of hammering out our priorities for putting together an RFP for the White Cliffs. And in that time, doing a significant amount of due diligence in the market, talking to, I think I've cataloged about 55 contacts within the historic preservation and adaptive reuse, the real estate development, and architecture communities, and anybody that touches any of those sorts of things, to stir up some interest and get some people on a list for the RFP. And I've gotten a good amount of response from a number of end user types and real estate developers. So we're reasonably confident that we've got some good exposure for the RFP that'll go out, and the RFP will go out tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And so it'll be live on the town's website, I think at 11 a.m., 10 or 11 a.m., but certainly by the afternoon it'll be available. So we spent I don't know, 6 or 8 meetings of the committee and a number of months putting together what we think is a very attractive, very responsive RFP that responds to what the community is looking for in a partner and what the town can manage. And so we're, nothing's a sure thing, but I'm reasonably pleased with the amount of interest that I've received thus far, and hopefully that'll bear out in a few proposals or a few responses. So the response window will be about 60 days. There'll be a site visit during that time and a period for questions, and we'll have a deadline of early December for responses, and the committee will be able to deliberate after that with a recommendation to town council sometime in the spring or after the first of the year. So I came to the planning board and the master plan committee and a bunch of other committees to just introduce myself as we were making this, going through this process. And I wanted to do the same with you folks. And while it's a little too late to edit the RFP before it goes out, certainly I want you to feel like you're part of the exercise, and it's still an evolutionary process. And if there are any comments or questions you had, I wanted to make sure I was here as a resource for you to address those. That's my spiel, and so I am now a resource for you to ask any questions or make any comments or follow up in the future. Certainly, my information is readily available.
You said the RFP is going out tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Will it be posted on the town website?
It will be, yes.
So I'm kind of curious, Brad, how this all works. I know you have some 50 contacts that you already know of, but how does the RFP actually get out? Will it be visible to hundreds of people or tens of people? I don't have a feeling for the breadth of the distribution of that.
So what happens is, because it's run through the town's register, what will happen is I will send out an email to all of the people that I've contacted and the people who are on my list, and directing them to sign up for the RFP on the town's website. Once they do that, we have their information, we can contact them. Any updates to the RFP or any questions that are answered will go to them. Any communications will automatically go through the town's automated system, which is a handy way of holding on to. And then much like I did with the sort of primer, the 2 weeks ago or so, we'll do another social media round where I'll send some copy out to the committee members, and they can put that on LinkedIn or send it around to friends or colleagues, directing them to sign up on the website for the RFP. As soon as you sign up, you put your email address, your name, a little bit about you. You get a link in your email, and so you're immediately have access to the RFP.
I guess I was under some kind of impression that there's some kind of broad announcement that this goes through because it's a town request.
Yeah, so it's advertised in the newspaper, it's put on the state's registry, and it's put on the Combis, which is the state's registry for municipal and state-wide RFPs and things. So that'll go out to anybody who's registered through Combis and ticks the email box for real estate or architecture or property dispositions, et cetera, et cetera. And so that'll cast a broader net as well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
What newspaper?
Frankly, I don't know. Whatever the town uses to put their, it's a legal requirement that they have to advertise in a print newspaper. I think it's probably, if I had to guess, the
Worcester Telegram.
yeah. I think that is less of a driver of interest than it is a legal requirement to it be publicized. But
Brett, you mentioned some developers were among those interested.
Yes.
Kind of somehow preservation and developers sort of seem at odds to me. Do you have a sense for what those developers are planning? Maybe mixed use or? or really just restoring?
Yeah, no, so,
Reading more into the term.
presumably, most of what I've spoken about with them is either some sort of hospitality venue, or I've spoken, yeah, they've mentioned mixed use or a housing, something that preserves the main house as could be a meeting space or a community center for the residents, while you build a small addition at the back that's connected. So the general idea is that you probably aren't going to put units in the mansion itself. It just doesn't lend itself very effectively to an efficient design. But you could use it as the community's meeting space. So it could be a management office in one of the rooms without having to really do much of anything. But yeah, so I went through the list of historic tax credit recipients for the last few years and earmarked some of those folks who have done historic adaptive reuse projects.
Thank you.
So is your role basically, you're hired by the town, but as a liaison to connect to some of these people, are you also able to or available to help some of those people with the RFP process itself?
Yeah, so I'm the contact on the RFP. If they have an issue with clarification, or they have a question that needs answering, I'm there to help.
Okay.
My job is advocate for the town, but we want to make sure that these folks have the resources they need and the questions answered so that they can effectively respond. Yeah,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and some of that is little color commentary more than anything, anecdotal information. We can't necessarily outline absolutely everything in an RFP, and so we can kind of guide them and to say, hey, look, this is the town has discussed X, Y, and Z, and they're open, they're flexible. We've tried to make it as obvious as possible that there's an effort to upzone the property because it sort of straddles two zoning districts at the moment, which is never a good thing. And we're working on X, Y, and Z. The town has spent a lot of money to preserve what's there and to stabilize and kind of give them the understanding that we're serious about this and we're ready to make substantive contributions to the future reuse.
Mm-hmm. But you're also able to, because you are somewhat familiar that went through a master plan,
Mm-hmm.
and that folds into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the criteria of evaluation is consideration of the master plan.
Sure. Okay.
When the RFP gets posted, I'll make sure I send a link to everybody on this committee so they can take a look at it. I've seen a draft of it. It's pretty informative, but it's not. It leaves openness for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not tremendously long. It's only about 18 pages all in with exhibits and everything else. And it was designed to be light on the legalese and all of that sometimes makes these RFPs a little difficult to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any questions for Brett while we have his full attention?
Last meeting we talked about putting this on, we're trying to get this on Preservation Massachusetts Most Endangered Historical Resources list. Does that kind of get tied into your RFP, or do they?
Yeah, the application's in. I don't think we'll have. I don't know when they make their decision, but it hasn't been made yet. So I know it was well received, and I think someone came down to look at the property a couple of weeks ago, an architectural historian with the state. So I think those are all good things. As much exposure as we can get. It's a little bit saying this is drawing attention to yourself as being the most endangered, but at the same time, it helps to understand the real quality and the complexity of the property.
Okay.
On that topic, Brian, I think it was the last White Cliffs meeting. At the end of the meeting, John Cadea, the town administrator, had mentioned that when the evaluator came in from Preservation Massachusetts, who's running that program, he was shocked about the great condition of that building, how sound it was, the condition it's in, and he's a real, in fact, I think I sent some links to you, Tom. He was looking at the hinges and found out the company that made the hinges and how, he was at that level of detail, and he was so impressed by the building. So
Amazing.
it was good to have someone like that walk through. It was good for lots of reasons.
Yeah, it is a remarkably well preserved building. Most of the time, these things don't look quite as good as White Cliffs does.
The interiors are well preserved, but the
Yes.
exterior is taken.
Sure.
A bit of a hit.
That's fair.
All right, unless there's any more questions, Brett, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to update us with the project.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you, Brett.
Reach out
Yeah.
with any questions if you've got any in the future. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
All right. So the next topic, we'll bring in Mike DeShano, our ex-colleague, Mike. So Mike is going to talk to us about the Community Preservation Act funding request that the Historical Society is putting in. So I sent that around for everybody, so hopefully you had a chance to get a gleam with what they're looking for. And Mike, tell us what you'd like to do.
Sure. This is a kind of follow-up on last year's request that you approved. This last year's was the installation of the shutters. This year, we're looking to restore the windows. There's about 24 windows in the building itself. Many of them they're in various degrees of disrepair. So we're looking to start the process of beginning to restore those wooden windows. And this is the first, request related to that. It's approximately $70,000, 72, I guess. And would entail hiring a restoration company. The one that we selected or have talked with is called Heartwood Window Restorers. They're out of Claremont, Massachusetts, in the western part of the state. And they obviously specialize in doing restoration of wooden windows. So their plan would be to remove the windows from the fixtures, take them to their shop. Using steam, they would then remove the old caulk, putty, remove the old paint, repaint, reglaze, and then return the windows back into the enclosures. The windows that have storm windows would use the storm windows to keep the building, tight. And the windows that don't have storm windows, which are basically the museum level of the second floor, we would put some kind of temporary piece of plywood over the enclosure. So all of that work comes up to approximately $72,000. Any questions?
I didn't see where it said that there's a timeline on this, just curious.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into the time scheduling with the contractor.
Okay.
So I intentionally did not put that in because I don't want to commit to them at this point. But I would think this work would take a couple of months to do all this. And we're looking to do this sometime next summer, or at least begin the process.
Mhm.
And Mike, as Norm mentioned, finances are this is going to be kind of a tough one this year. And what we've done with
Yeah.
lots of projects in the CPC is split them
Mhm.
across 2 years. Is this something that do you think could be split across 2 years and would really just be half the price for each?
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly going to be half. I think there are more windows in the first floor than there are in the second floor, or I should say street level versus museum level. The larger windows are at the museum level, but the first floor all those windows have storm windows, so there would be a savings in that we don't have to, put a temporary enclosure over the windows if we do the second floor. But that's certainly something that we can look at to break up the price a little bit.
Mhm.
Yes.
I guess one other question, is there any like infiltration of water or anything like that needs to be considered? And if we were to delay?
As far as infiltrating past the storm windows, you mean?
Or any of the windows, like, is there a rush to, it would delaying part of it by another
Windows-
year sacrifice the integrity of the building in
No.
any way?
The windows in generally are in, moderate to severe disrepair. I mean, there are some, I think I included some of the pictures on the first floor, like in the back where the entrance is. It's quite dramatic. There's a lot of rot there, and there are various windows, depending on which window you look at, there's varying degrees of rot, and a lot of the caulking of the putty is spalling off and falling out. So as far as we know at this point, there's nothing, none of the windows are leaking, coming through on a regular basis. It could be on a really severe storm, like a driving rain. There might be, some infiltration, but not generally speaking. That's one of the reasons I think we decided we would like to begin this process, is to kind of get ahead of any more further deterioration of the windows, because they are wooden windows, and they do need this kind of work every so often. And we're trying to connect with window restorers, guys that specialize in doing this kind of work, that have the technical skills and ability to kind of, because it's very easy to crack and break these windows when you're trying to take the glazing out. I know that from firsthand knowledge. So the steam application is they have the steam booths and the steam tables where they can heat these things up without causing the windows to break. And I'm sure there's some breakage, but we're relying on their expertise to kind of help us through restoring these windows back to very original shape, really.
Tom, please speak.
So Mike, I had some questions about the components of the windows. These are original 1860 windows?
I'm not sure. I think so. To the best of my knowledge, they are original windows, yes.
And they're going to remove the sash and take them to the shop. What's happening to the frames?
Well, we're going to delay that because of cost considerations. We originally had a quote from, I think it's in the list of vendors we talked to, a group named Cleary and Son, who actually came out and gave us a price of over $200,000, and that just seemed just beyond what we would probably request realistically. And his estimate included doing essentially the work that Heartwood would do, and also restoring the enclosures, all the replacing the window sash weights with chains, etc. So that's going to have to get put off for, but we thought we could at least start by getting the windows reglazed and recaulked and restored in that regard, and then start chipping away at it year in, year out. So if we have to push back, if we do half the windows, the street level this year, maybe do the museum level next year, then perhaps the year after that, we can start working on the inside portion, like the sills and the trim and that kind of stuff.
So it's a partial restoration. You're just doing the sash where the glass is held in place. These are true divided light, and the muttons are going to be repaired,
Yes.
painted and so forth. But the
Exactly.
frames are remaining, the sills are remaining, the trims remaining.
Right.
Okay. So it's a partial
It's just a
restoration.
matter, really, it's just a matter of financing. We just didn't feel like it was realistic to, I mean, I'm sure if there's a concern over $70,000, if I asked for $200,000, I'd be going the wrong way. So, you know, Cleary's estimate included a lot of that work. It was very detailed. They came to the site. We stayed with them for an hour or so, and they really looked it over. They do excellent work. Their website, you know, is an interesting thing to look at, and but we just couldn't afford what they're asking. So,
Did you discuss with the contractors the state requirements for energy efficiency when you replace windows?
no, did not.
So the IECC 2018 is the operable energy code. And whenever you do a window replacement, you have to apply for a building permit. And the requirement is that the windows have to have a U value of 0.45 in zone 5, which is the area that Northborough is. So if you're replacing single glazed windows, they're not going to meet the state requirements for energy efficiency. So the options are storm windows on the inside or the outside, preferably on the inside, so you can see the restored windows. You can go with a true divided light insulated glass, or you could do a simulated insulated glass. It doesn't sound like the committee, historic committee or society reviewed these options. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, there is a historic exemption, but in order to qualify in historic exemption, you have to have someone from the State Historic Commission or a registered design professional certify that the imposition of the energy efficient guidelines would destroy or harm the historic nature of the building. So there's some steps that'll have to be done before they'll allow you to do this work. And it doesn't sound like the energy efficiency component has been addressed adequately.
Well, all I would say is we did discuss with Cleary when he was on site. They were going to not only do reglaze and redo the windows, the existing windows, but also replace the existing storm windows that we had. And I didn't get into the detail of what you just described, but you know, he was saying, I mean, he didn't get into U values, but he was saying that you know, replace the weather stripping, new storm windows, they'll be as good as double pane insulated glass windows. So even though we didn't talk about the specific U value, it seemed to me, now that I think back on it, that, you know, that's the direction he was headed. And we did talk about having to have a building permit as a requirement, but all what you just mentioned was not part of the discussion. So I can't say with certainty if we went with Cleary and the, you know, the reglazing and the storm windows, we would achieve that. But it sounded like we would be getting close. But it's just too expensive. I just couldn't do it.
Well, my suggestion would be to repair, restore the 160-year-old sashes and get an energy panel installed on the interior, because you have the true divided light muntins on the exterior. That's what enlivens the exterior, that makes it true to its, you know, Greek revival roots. When you put storm windows over it, they just read as black glass, and you lose all that detail, and you hate to do that to a historic structure.
So basically remove the existing storm windows is what you're saying, right? And replace them with inside storm windows. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay.
That way you can see the actual detail of the true divided light of the original windows.
Understood.
I mean, this could be done in phases, but somehow you're going to have to satisfy the requirements for a building permit. And just the way it stands now, it will not pass. So you either have to get a report from the state that certifies that this is acceptable exemption, or you have to get a design professional to write a report, and that has to be submitted to the building department, and then they have to approve those exemptions. So it's not as a simple process as you might think. Every window replacement in the state has to have a building permit, and we are a stretch cone community, and Massachusetts has stricter requirements for energy performance than many other states.
Okay, well, since we don't include all that stuff, I guess it kind of puts the kibosh on proceeding any further. I would think.
This, Tom, first, thank you very much for that information, because
Yeah.
it's all new to us. You're a real asset on the team for that. First of all, Mike, whenever you put together a application for a grant, you do a thorough job.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
Now, I'm trying to answer the questions.
Yeah, but you're very thorough, and Tom's input is certainly very valuable. As Leslie alluded to, because she's on the CPC, she's our representative on the CPC, historic money funding might be really tough right now. A lot of it's depending on what's going to happen with the RFP for White Cliffs. Do we have to put more money in the pot for White Cliffs? Where was it going to come from? So this has all been coming up in the last couple of weeks, how we're going to handle that. So money's going to be really tight. After what I hear from Tom and some of the comments I written to you earlier in an email, that there might be some other sources for some subsidies
Funding.
for some grant. You might want to consider taking in Tom's information, plus the information that I supplied with some possible grant opportunities, and rethink the project in terms of phasing it somehow, and maybe skipping this year and going after it next year. I don't think you're in a crisis situation, which is really good. And I think overall the project is the right project. I just think the timing might not be quite right yet. And you might want to, you might want to just start talking to the building inspector of the town of Northborough if you haven't made that contact yet to confirm some of these things. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the project. I think it's well thought through. I think there's some unanswered questions. It just might not be the right time right now.
Okay.
Mike, I have a couple questions on the windows. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm done.
Are they all functional windows?
Yes, they all work.
Okay.
They're just in various stages of, some windows have some rot on the muttons, and some of them have them on the sills, a little bit of dry rot here, a little dry rot there. Most of the windows have caulking that are starting to spall off and will probably be falling off in chunks in the next year or two.
Okay.
Just kind of normal wear and tear of these old wooden windows that, a restorer would use epoxy or Dutchman or somehow and repair the wood and add, modern caulk to keep the windows in place and airtight. So if we have to replace all the glass with a certain type of glass, it's obviously going to be a huge cost addition. If we have to add interior storms to this, it's again another huge cost that hasn't been considered. So, if what I think we're headed, this project that I think is going to be well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars when all is said and done. And frankly, I just don't see that. I mean, certainly not this year from what I'm hearing, but I can't imagine too many years where we would get approval for a couple $100,000 to do window restoration. I might be wrong, but, and so, yeah, phasing it seems like the only realistic approach.
And one of the things I want you to keep in mind, Mike, is that the grant from the state, the 50-50 grant from the state, they would match, they would put in up to $100,000. So if you got a $200,000 project, Mass State might give you 100,000. CPA could give you another 100,000. It's not off the table. It's a viable option.
Okay.
And Mike, your goal was to have more community use of the meeting space on the first floor, and having energy efficient windows will reduce your heating and cooling costs, reduce the draft, increase the comfort level. I mean, it's all tied in with, your overall goal to make this a more attractive place to meet in town. And restoring the window sash, the muttons are quite unusual, and the profile is kind of sculpted up to a point, and it's very unusual. It's a narrow, elegant profile, which you just don't see in contemporary windows. So I'm wholeheartedly support the restoration of these historic windows, but you can't forget the energy efficiency component.
Right, that's a good point, Tom.
Fair enough.
And how long would this be expected to last? Are these original windows?
Well, like I said, I'm not sure. I think so, because I'm unaware of anyone that's told me any otherwise. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say they're probably 160-year-old windows. And they're in pretty good shape considering they're 160 plus years old. So,
Amazing.
there's no historic information that we have on our front that gives me any kind of idea as to these windows, if they've been replaced or when they were actually installed. I believe they're original to the building.
Wow.
So,
Well, you could send the caulk out and get it dated.
oh
Paint.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, you can send it to a lab, the caulk, the paint. Make sure there's no asbestos either.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and PCBs and all the rest of it, and so that all brings up a whole nother world
Oh,
of
yeah.
hurt.
Yeah,
I guess,
lead
Mike,
paint.
what I want to leave you with tonight is I think the consensus of our group is it's a good project. It might need to be tweaked for some other reasons. It might even be more expensive than what you proposed. So I don't want to come across that we're poo-pooing the project. That's not the intent here at all.
Well, let me ask you, the group, if you could give me some ballpark idea as to what would be an approvable number as far as a project goes. Does that vary year to year? Because if 72,000 is too much for the year 2024, what would 2025 number look like? Would that be, if I came to you with $200,000 project to restore the windows with all the stuff we've talked about, would that be a no can do, or is that something you guys would proceed on and approve?
It's
I mean,
impossible.
I don't know what the number is. I know 200,000 doesn't seem like that's why we backed it off when the Cleary brothers came to us with that number. And now I'm hearing 72,000 is also not the right number. So adding to that next year is certainly not going to make it cheaper. And I know we can phase it, but I'm trying to get a sense of, and it's just a gut feeling, I guess. If you can offer that, it would be helpful in terms of how I can structure a scope for a window restore for the coming year. Is there any thoughts on that?
Norm, I don't know if you want to go for, I do have some thoughts, but Norm, why don't you go?
What's that?
I'll only go because I used to be on the CPC committee. The competition for the dollars is not just for historic. The competition for the dollars could be housing project. Last year, there was a huge possible funding for new construction for affordable housing that fell through at the last minute. But that can take a big bite of dollars. And then the same thing with Parks and Rec. So it's the challenge is, I think the challenge for the CPC committee is to figure out how to phase these things in for different years for different projects. That's my 2 cents.
Yes, I was going to essentially say the same thing, which is I wouldn't, you want to put together a project that you feel is the right thing to do, but you just need to figure out how to position it. So I wouldn't say there's no magic number, but I would say be prepared. I would come with the full 72, but I would be prepared for the question about it being phased and actually be prepared to
Well, I
address
mean, at
that question.
this point, I'm not sure we're going to proceed. Because at 72,000, we can't meet the requirements of the building code. So that kind of puts this in, in the back to the drawing board.
Well, you can contact the State Historic Preservation Office that gives exemptions for historic buildings from the energy part of the building code. That's section C 501.6, and to talk to them about it. They hear situations like this all the time and just get their feedback. But the mood of the state is moving towards, net energy compliance by 2050. And I think all state departments are pushing in the same direction and want all buildings, historic as well as new construction, to start moving in that direction. But it certainly makes a stronger case for when you're fundraising that is both historic preservation and making the building more energy efficient.
Oh, I understand. Couldn't agree more, but that's not what we have in front of me right now. So to reassess and redo and kind of do all that stuff, I mean, it takes time and effort and then, a lot of discussion back and forth. So I'm not sure it's going to work out, but we'll see. I was just trying to, really what I was trying to do is just get a sense of, I don't think 200,000, no matter what year it is ever going to work. And so, I'm thinking if we could structure something that's under 100,000 in the coming years that does the windows or does whatever, that's kind of my upper limit for these kind of restoration projects. In other words, I don't think we as a restorer under the restoration bucket, if you will, for the CPC funding could ever come in and compete in the $1 million category as the housing guys do. I mean, they come in and they're looking for $1.5 million. There's no way we're going to be even close to that. But so if it's not $1.5 million, what number are we looking at? 100 grand, 100? Can I go high as 150 on a good year? I get this year is a bad year, but if it was a good year, what would that number be?
It's impossible to say. It really is. Depends on the applications, depends on the reimbursement. There are too many variables to say that. So again, I would just put together the project the way you feel it has to be done and present it. And
so it's kind of like what they say about pornography. I know it when I see it, right?
and your taste changes over time. I don't know. There's some variability in there.
All right. Well, thank you.
The other thing, Mike, is I think the CPC will also be looking for is if you've considered other funding, and that does help, I think, move things along if that's been somewhat granted or considered.
Yeah, understood. Fair enough.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think the general concept of this project is a good project. That's not the issue here at all.
Understood.
All righty. So if we're all set with Mike's project, we can move on.
I'm going to bug out. If that's
all right. Take care again, Mike.
Yeah. Bye.
Hi, Mike. It was nice seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah, I'll see you again.
Bye.
All right. How are we doing on time? That's maybe a little longer tonight. Let's see what we got. All right. Some simple things. Apple Fest booth. Myself and Bob and Amanda and Brian Swanson manned the booth. I liked it because I like to interact with people that have history interests. We met some very interesting people who own some old homes in town. I think, and when I like that they put us near the Historical Society because we kind of work off each other, because people now realize we are two different groups, and we are, so that I think that works out very well. Anybody else who participated have a word or two to say?
Well, the people that bought the Grange showed up, and they're doing some restoration right now. It's pretty interesting. It's gonna be a single family house where they may, I think they may rent out the second floor, but I'm not sure yet. So it was interesting to meet them.
That's great.
Oh, it's a way to, one of our purposes is to have a face to the public. So that's one forum that works quite well for us.
Mhm.
I propose we retire the term manned.
Oh.
What would you like? I'll take any word.
Staffed.
Staff is
anything
good.
with-
Okay, staff is good.
anything-
It's a good idea. The Historic Preservation Plan. So I sent it off to Mass Historic Commission, to Jennifer Doherty, because she's the person who gave us quite a bit of very helpful feedback. And she got back to me today that everything looks good. We're good to go. So it's done. There's a
Wow.
table I need to just tweak a little, but it's done.
Bravo.
Yay,
Yeah.
yay.
There's a few people in this house who are
Amazing.
happy about that.
Oh,
Amazing.
So the next step is, first of all, Millie, could you make sure that the implementation committee knows that we did something? I think we're the first ones who finished something.
trust me, I'm on that one.
All right, thank
Check
you.
the
for
box.
that. All right, check
Yes.
that box. And we'll get it up on the website, which will be handy. And then I was looking, there's a few loose ends. I want to know if Brian Swanson, if you want a paper copy or an email is sufficient for you.
Email is okay.
And Mr. Smith, do you want a paper copy or also a hard copy?
No, hard copy is not necessary.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Guys are new school.
Yeah.
Because I have to make some copies. So I'm happy with that. Let's see. The CPA funding. Last time we spoke, we were talking about a historic marker for the library, maybe something that has one of Captain Gale Jr. or something. Anyway, so I contacted the library and they're very interested in that. The price of those markers have gone up significantly. They used to be $2,800 2 years ago. They are now $4,300.
Wow.
So the price has gone high. We can make it a little smaller. We can do a few savings. My gut feeling is, since it's the library, it might be worth it. But any subsequent ones we put up around town, we're going to have to sit back and really think this through, because we're getting to the expensive proposition. So I'm working with library director Jennifer. I can't remember her last name.
Jen Bruno.
Yes, thank you. And we're putting an application in, but it's going under historic for $5,000. And now we're going to have to see, because we may run into the same bugaboo as I think the Historical Society will in terms of funding. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. So that's where that stands. The Girl Scout Cemetery Project. The Girl Scout, she's a freshman at high school. It's Lana Ingerslav. And I wanted to, she's all set. She got her silver award.
Nice.
And I wanted to pull up a picture of her work. Let's see if I can find that. I have to see it right here. Give me 1 second. Because she's done, I think, somewhere near about a half a dozen, 6 to 8 stones. The project requires 50 hours of work. That includes all of the meetings and the like. And if I can find it right here. If I can do the shared screen again. Can you see that?
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the one on the left is before she cleaned the stone. The one on the right is
Wow.
after.
Wow.
Two examples. It's really eye-opening.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What is she doing? What's,
We sent her the information on how to restore the grave sites. It's D2 is the product that's recommended for the cleaning in elbow grease. A lot of little elbow grease, a little soft scrubbing and the like.
not just dumping buckets of Clorox on it or anything?
No, there's a certain way you're supposed to do it. So the good thing is she's demonstrated how good it is, and part of her project is to come up with a written procedure for other people to carry on. So,
Good.
That's
but yeah,
amazing. Wow.
if you
That
walk
is
in the
really amazing.
cemetery, it's nice that she came up on her own. It was her own idea to do this, and it's very impressive.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice to see.
The amount of detail in the
It's
cleaning
unreal. Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah.
So these are not in the historic section.
These are they're in the older part of the historic of the
Well, Ball, yeah. So one is Ball. So that's, I can't tell the last. Oh, Steve is the last name, or Steve?
Steve, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's
Probably
on
the last name.
It's on that main road that goes parallel to the brook, pretty much, and it's on
That's
the right.
remarkable.
Yeah. So they show up because the ones around them aren't quite that clear.
That's
So,
amazing.
Lana did a great job.
Yeah, she did.
And let's see, cemetery signs. So that's the one Lorna was working at. Brian Swanson had got the quotes back over a year ago, and then Lorna took over. She's working on that now. We're still squaring away the loose ends on the actual wording on those signs. So it's the last version, there was a miscommunication somewhere, so we're still working up how we're gonna. It's gonna say Kaiser section that we decided on. So that's the goal, is to have them installed before winter, and I think we can do that. We're pretty close there. So now I'd like to spend a little bit of time on CPA requests from us. One thing that I didn't really appreciate till recently, for those of you who are on the CPC committee, realize that there's a part of one of the funding is called reserves. So there's a historic reserve, there's a reserve for affordable housing, and a reserve for parks. Our reserve is zero. We've never had a plan to put that money aside. And the purpose of the reserve is to put money aside for the future use. The way we've been running lately is every year comes up, we look at what we have for funding, and whatever's available, we utilize it. But it leaves nothing to the future. With White Cliffs coming online, that's one example, and I got a bunch of other examples. There's going to be some big ticket items coming up in the next 3 to 5 years. So just to give you an idea, so you got the White Cliffs, which could be any kind of number for additional funding when we find a good partner to work with. The making the bridge over the Aqueduct River, the Assabet River for the aqueduct, that's going to be an expensive project, and a lot of that could be historical because it's restoration of the structure. I mean, a number like $500,000 from us is not unexpected. We want to do those. We're doing the. We're putting the Howard Street Cemetery on the National Register. That's a couple of years away, but the first thing we want to do with that is get a project to repair the broken stones. And if you walk around that section, there are at least 100 broken stones.
Yeah.
We're looking at close to $200,000. Now, we might be able to match that with some grant funding, but these are big ticket items coming down the pike. You saw the Historical Society. Now they've got a plan. I'd like to see their plan for other projects coming down the pike. So they did the painting, they're doing the shutters and the windows. Then what's next? I think they got some big ticket items there. One of them is, in my mind, has always been, how will they preserve their documents in their images and the like, and they need HVAC upgrades. There's some big ticket items there. at Applefest, Unitarian Church people were talking to us because it turns out the steeple has some major structural problems. They are already looking at $250,000, $250,000 to repair the steeple. They wanted to know CPC funding, grants from other people. How do they get that done? That's another big ticket item. I think we need to put money in the bank now. We need to plan ahead. So my thought is, and this is what I want to bounce off of you people and see if it makes sense. My thought is to get $1 million into that account over 3 years. Find a way, if possible, to put $350,000 into historic reserve next year and hopefully the next 2 years. Don't know if we'll get 350. It's going to come down to what all the other needs of CPA funding are. But I think we need to put a request in. We need to be prepared, and we're really not prepared for big ticket items yet. So that's, and I don't know what else is, to be honest, I don't know what else is coming in for CPA funding for history this year. Leslie, have you seen anything else besides the society?
No, not yet. Well, I wasn't I had to miss last week's meeting.
But they're trickling in, aren't they? Are they forwarding it to?
I haven't seen anything yet. So
So I haven't seen anything either. So I don't know. Millie, I don't know what the ticket items are coming in for a CPA request.
Yeah.
It's early. Still a couple weeks left.
Oh, yeah. A couple.
Yeah, they're due November 4th. This is 3 weeks away, if that. So.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's when all the work happens.
Yeah.
Would you know what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
I did speak with a group at Trinity Church, and they have needs as well, where they'd like to make their building more accessible. There's a lot of different levels. There's no elevators. It's underutilized. Large portions of it are not occupied at all. And I briefly spoke with them about CPA funding. I don't think they've put together any kind of program yet, but you're looking for big ticket items. There's another one.
Thank you, Tom. I didn't know about them. They approached us when I was on the committee. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, they were thinking about something. And I don't remember if it was access or the like, but they had they had contemplating it, CPA funding at that time, but they never pulled the trigger on that.
Tom, would they be able to put an elevator in that building?
In the back side entry, there's like an L facing the old Gale store going east. You could tuck an outside elevator. I don't think you'd be able to bring it up through the building. But they were talking about maybe having a daycare, some affordable housing. They just have a lot of space that's not being used, and it's a beautiful old building, and it's right in the center of town. So I told them that the master plan was being implemented, and they should pay attention to what's being discussed, because they could be a critical component.
Nice elevator on the outside of the building.
Handicapped
A bell tower
access to
elevator.
historic buildings is fully acceptable for CPA funding.
Yeah.
Norm, how many more years do we have for the White Cliffs bond?
I'm glad you asked. I just looked it up today. Today will be the next year's town meeting will be number 6 of 10.
10 is 10. Okay.
And it's dropping down. Somewhere I had a printout how every year it decreases. This year, last year I think it was 185,000. So next year it might be like 160,000, something like that.
Okay.
So, and that's, that's also part of our historic expenditures, isn't it?
Right, and that's non-negotiable. So that's one that just.
That's a fixed cost. Yeah. Absolutely.
Leslie, I have a question for you on CBC, because I haven't been on as long as you have, but do you ever see, or have you ever seen any applications come through that are really applied for under 2, like historic? I could see the aqueduct being historic and recreation. So do you ever see them come under 2 that might be more open to more funding that way?
That's no, because first of all, I don't recall that ever happening, but also so 10% has to go to each category. So once that 10% is met, there's really no benefit to one over the other. It's just a question of priorities. And so as long as we meet the minimum for every category, which again is 10%, and that 170, that bond payment puts us over that each time easily.
Well,
that's a good point, but I'm not recalling any that are dual.
I had heard that opening up the bridge for the aqueduct could be close to $1 million. So the question
Oh,
then
yeah.
is,
It's
so
a
then the
big
question
number.
is 500 of it history related? Is 500? And I don't know how that all splits out.
Yeah. Just
I don't,
curious.
would it qualify under historic because it's not,
It's on the National Register. And what are they planning to doing? Redoing the top, putting in new railings? I mean, these are all restoration.
yeah, I guess it's restaurant, yeah.
Yeah. But the Trails Committees, you know, they're carrying the ball on it. I
Yeah.
touch base with them once in a while, so just so they know that there's also potential funding for historic preservation too. So what I'm looking for now, does it make sense for me to put, for us, to put in a CPA request for $350,000 to put it in our reserves?
I think it does.
How does the Historic District Commission dispense money for projects? What's the mechanism?
How do we dispense money?
Wait, where's this $1 million going to? Is it just held by the CPC and is for historic projects with your review? Or do you have your own monies to dispense from in this pot?
Well, it goes into the historic reserves account, and it's not. I don't want to say this. It's not our money. It's money for historic preservation. So this historical society could access those funds. Trinity Church could access those funds. We review it to make sure that whatever the request is appropriate for historic use. The challenge always is, and that's to me the CPC committee's role, is they're trying to juggle what projects can be funded either with the funds they have available or setting some kind of priority. So we kind of oversee what the requests are, but we don't really hold the purse strings. We don't hold the money. It's CPC.
And the town has to approve this through town meeting. That we do
Exactly,
this.
Millie.
Yeah, so voters have to basically agree that we, as the, to put this into a historic reserve.
They buy a bunch of CDs with this while it accrues interest or what?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how that works.
They do utilize things, yeah.
Treasury bonds?
Well, just to put it in perspective, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but affordable housing, I think, had something like $600,000 in their reserve account, and the recreation had like 500,000 in their reserve account.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not recreation, it's conservation. Conservation has that, and that's only part of the picture. They also have they do something that we don't do. They actually take their money from CPA and move it into a separate account so they can access it quickly. So they also have another pot of money that's associated with CPA funding. That's because if something comes up housing really quick, they can't wait for an annual town meeting to let it go. So they have significant funds and we have zero. And I think we really need to make sure that the reserves are up higher than that.
Yeah, we do it with open space as well. We put it in the conservation
Space, right?
conservation fund so that we can get to it without town meeting vote.
So I only heard a few comments about the request. I mean, the way this works is we put in a request for 350,000. If you ever watched the last meeting of the Community Preservation Committee, they number crunch.
Oh, yeah.
That number might not be 350 at the end, and they contact us and say, you're not going to get 350, we had to cut you back. But if we don't ask for the 350, you know,
We're not
it
gonna
comes
get it.
back because there's no reason to.
You talking about 350 in addition to the 160, 70 or whatever?
That's what I'm asking for. That's what I think. That's what I want to put on paper. I know it's a
Man.
big number, but I want that. I want to be part of that discussion. I think
Okay.
it's an important discussion.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Go big or get sent home.
And there's also, you know, the other thing that's unknown right now is there may be a request in for something for whitelist come December, depending on what the partner needs short term. So there's bunch of things that are in the air right now, but if you don't have the paperwork in, then we're out of the discussion. So I'm looking for a stupid idea. Why not try it? Some kind of feedback.
All of the above, stupid and bold, and let's go for it.
So it's a very easy form to fill out. I will take the initiative and fill it out and send it in.
That's just my feeling, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. The only other things left over is, no, that's it. Anybody else have anything else they wanted to discuss or bring up tonight? I was hoping we'd stop by around 8:30 and look at that. Considering it took 10 minutes to get us all talking to each other. Want to carry on or call it quits?
I think we should call it quits.
Is that an official motion there, Brian?
Yes.
Who second that?
I'll second.
A third.
All right, we'll do by the voting members. Here we go. Leslie,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
All right. Hey, we haven't decided on our next meeting.
I,
Oh, that's right. You're now a member. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm so used to calling you when I shouldn't. Now I don't call
I
you.
don't have many votes. I have to take advantage of it.
Yeah. We haven't set up a meeting time yet. It all depends if we go virtual. It's all a matter of scheduling when we have someone like Jim that can help us out because we needed him today. So we can't really run out.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Hey, have a good month. We'll stay in touch for a new meeting time.
Sounds good, and good luck with the
Sounds good.
COVID.
Thanks, Norm.